The Wellness Show with Angela and Safiya.
Join us every Wednesday at 12 noon on Heritage Radio 90.6 FM.
I'm Angela Sumas, a nutritionist, a mindset coach, and a teacher.
And I am Safiya Ascolibol, a Pilates instructor and a Taekwondo black belt.
We're both passionate about wellness, and we will be opening your horizons about ways you can become healthier in your body, mind, and soul.
We will be drawing tips from our knowledge and personal experience as professionals and busy home educating moms.
Whether you're a man or a woman, single or a parent, there will be something for you.
Join us every Wednesday at 12 on Heritage Radio 90.6 FM. Welcome to this week's edition of The Wellness Show with Angela and Safiya. Please note that whatever we say is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure. If you are in doubt, do consult a healthcare practitioner before applying any change to your lifestyle. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum. How are you, Safiya?
I'm all right. Alhamdulillah.
How are your holidays?
Yeah, it's been really good. You put them into inverted commas. They were holy days for some people, and for us, they were family days, actually. Alhamdulillah. We had very good gathering. I tried to be good with, how much food I ate, what kind of food I ate, but I also, I applied my principle, which I mentioned last time, which is the 80%, 20%. 80% of the time, you do what you want, what's important, you follow the rules you've set yourself. And 20% of the time, you say, yeah, I'll have that piece of cake, or I'll have that Turkish delight and enjoy it. Unfortunately, I did not do as much exercise as I was hoping to. I thought
you needed to rest.
Yes, I know you told me that, and there was always your voice in the back of my head telling
rest.
Yes, telling me, don't worry. And it's true, actually. That is something we'll touch upon at some point as well, is how much exercise you should be doing, and whether rest is part. And they say rest is the hardest part of your training. But that's going to be on a completely different show. Let's not go into a tangent, because we are very good at that.
Yeah, we are very good at throwing random thoughts around. I don't want to say another random thought.
Now, let's talk. So what are we going to talk about today, Angela?
We're going to talk about calories in, calories out, myth or fact. Very important. Though I don't think one little show is going to do it justice, but we'll make a start.
Well, yes. I mean, to be honest, there's only so much we can cover in 1 hour or whatever minutes, 55 minutes, because some of this subject are really in depth. But what I find is that opening the mind to people and encouraging you all listeners to then do your own research. We have the internet. We have so many resources, books galore, if you want to research something a little bit more in depth. But we just put these little thoughts in your mind.
But sometimes it's hard the information is out there, but it's how to put them together.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
We're here. I've also had to figure out a lot of that stuff, like go through all the information and then figure out what's myth and what's fact. I started off with the regular mainstream idea that everything is about calories in, calories out, whether you gain or you lose weight. In reality, it's not. It's more complicated than that. So actually, that's just part of the equation. So, but first let's define what is a calorie. The calorie definition of a calorie is 1 calorie. What is 1 calorie? 1 calorie is the amount of energy required to increase the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. End of quote. That is the definition, the official definition. And it just means that a calorie is a measure of energy. Now, the biggest myth is when people think a calorie is a calorie, right? And that all calories are equal, no matter what food they come from. And that's not true. From what you put all the information together, all the data together, it matters where the calorie comes from, right? And you have to care what food it comes from. I mean, if you're eating donuts I mean, we're going to use extremes now, I suppose. I'm good at using extremes, but in order to make a point, one donut or one piece of cheese or one piece of chicken or one piece of bread, are they all equal? And to be fair, our bodies don't see food the way we see it in our mind. It's a biological thing, so they see it as energy and where it's coming from. So when you're eating meat, protein, or fat, your body has built-in brakes to say you've had enough. And you can test this this week. Please test it and let us know. When you eat meat, just meat or just fat. I mean, it sounds like, oh, who's gonna sit and eat a bar of butter? You can't eat it. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But when you have a plate of rice or a plate of pasta or a nice bread, you can literally eat the whole thing because that your body does not have the brakes to it. I mean, your stomach might start hurting, and that's a physical, but you can keep eating literally because carbs. What would be a good way to explain in layman's term what does carbs do? They just make the signal for telling you had enough. It kind of covers it. It doesn't allow it to go through. That's why you keep eating.
So when you talk about carbs, are you talking about again? We can say all calories are not equal, but we could equally say all carbs are not equal.
Definitely. So thanks for bringing that up.
Let's just tell us a little bit more what carbs are exactly. I mean, what sort of food stuff? Give us examples.
Well, let's put them in two categories. In like generally two categories, right? We'll on one side we'll have the vegetables. I'm not even going to mention the fruit because the fruit are sweet. Just put the fruits on the side, but they have their benefits too.
So vegetables, anything from carrots, potatoes to
especially
leeks?
The greens, all the ones with leaves on them, right? Cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, bok choy, mushrooms. We can go on and on. And then on the other side, I mean, there's the vegetables that when you cook them, they become very what would you call that? You cook them like carrots, sweet potatoes. They also are very good. I would say they're in between. But then the other ones, the refined carbs, which is the bread, the rice, the pasta, they're the ones that you need to be aware of. They're the ones that cause the problems when we're talking about increasing your appetite.
So when we talk about refined carbs, we go deep now into more details now into that little category. What does that mean exactly? Refined? Does it mean that they've been processed or? They've been processed
and most of the time it means all the goodness has been removed. So for example, wheat, right?
Right.
And even that has more details. But let's just pretend we're talking about normal wheat. They go through the process, they remove all the outer layers, all the fiber that's good for us, and they leave it with inside all the really white stuff that's really, really like delicious, and they cook from there. And that is like taking the fruit, like an orange, and putting it through the blender, removing all the pulp and making orange juice. That's basically what they do with wheat. They put it through a process that removes all the fiber, all the goodness, and is left with pure wheat, the inner part of the wheat,
which has then less nutrient.
Right. So then in the factory they do add nutrients that are not good for us necessarily, but they have to, right? It has to do with the food standards in this country, but it's not good for you because they take that. They make the flour, they make the bread, right? They make the buns, they add sugar to it.
They add a lot of additive,
to preserve it.
Yeah, that's true.
And this is where
make your own bread,
you can literally eat a bag of rolls, a bag of donuts, a bag of buns, anything, because they hit some spots in your brain that make you want to eat more and more and more. And believe it or not, it's done on purpose.
Yes. Yes, of course, because there's a benefit. If you eat about a bag of biscuits, you're more likely going to buy one quickly, soon, to replace that. The package you've just eaten. I see that every day in my own family. Unfortunately, like most mums, I struggle to implement maybe a healthier diet. I'm just hoping that when they're older, they will decide themselves that they want to restrict certain things, because it's just ultimately of no real benefit to them, and they find more. This is the thing, we try to encourage everyone, don't we, to try and find alternatives that are extremely satisfying, that help you reach your satiety, which is basically feeling full with the nutrients.
Look, it's very easy to see that most of us are eating for pleasure and not because we're hungry. Because if you go into the supermarket, apart from the perimeter of the supermarket, most of the stuff in the shelves are processed foods, and they do not offer any benefit to our health. And when you're eating, and you see it basically just as a biologic fact, when you're eating, you're either helping your body or you're damaging your body. Now, you're not going to see the danger right away, right? You could just see it maybe in tempers and your mood is, when your children are having tantrums after they've had a lot of sweets and all that. But you're not going to see the physical stuff. Though these days you see a lot of children who are obese. And they're not obese by accident. I'm not saying their parents are making them obese. No, but the parents just don't know, right? They are being told it's okay and this is good for your child. So if they don't know any better, they give it to them because the kids like it. It's tasty, but it's causing so much. So, for instance, harm.
Here, you're right. Just to give an example to our listeners, I don't know if anyone's had an opportunity to look at a list of the calories contained into different foods. So, for instance, when you were saying that all calories are not equal.
Yeah.
So, we have, for instance, here, I have, say, a bagel. I'm just using that as an English muffin, okay? It says here, English muffin. It's probably an American website when I have to specify it's English. A muffin is 130 calories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that would be, I don't know what the quantity is, but it's probably like what, I don't know, generally it's per 100 grams, but it doesn't really matter. It gives you an idea. These are a table that compares like for like, okay? So you have a muffin, 130 calories, and let me go to beans, about 100 calories. But obviously, when you're going to eat your muffin, you're going to have mostly sugar and some wheat with probably very little nutrition left into it because it's been so processed.
Well, wheat breaks down into glucose.
Yeah.
To remind people this, so anything carbs, it breaks down to glucose for your body to recognize and to decide what to do with it. Protein breaks down to amino acids, and fat is broken down to fatty acids. And your body sees food in this way. It does not see it as chicken. No, it sees it as protein, fatty acids, and fatty acids and amino acids. Your body needs them to build cells, right? Healthy cells. Depends what kind of fatty acids and what kind of amino acids you give it, but they do need it, right? Because your body needs those things to build. Glucose, there is a need for it in the brain, but your body can make it from the liver. So it's not that necessary. And as we can see, most of us, we eat for pleasure. We do not eat because we're hungry.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You would eat some beans in a meal, and that would fill you up, etc. But you wouldn't really go and reach for that as a snack, because it gives you fullness, but it doesn't necessarily give you a huge amount of satisfaction in your mouth. And I always, when I give myself a treat, I always say, "Oh, my mouth loved it," but my stomach didn't, or if I overdo it. And it's true. And that reminds me of another principle when we eat, which a lot of people might not be aware of, that it takes 30 minutes for the body for the body to process the food and send a message, not process the food fully, but like to have it in the stomach and send a message to the brain that you're full.
Satiety.
So that's why you need to eat slowly. That's why you need to eat small spoonfuls or forks. Sometimes actually it's recommended to eat, like why do we eat, for instance, in Islam, with 3 fingers, not a full hand of a mix of rice and sauce and everything. You have to be aware. We're here to break some stereotypes and myths and ideas that we see, and you have to be honest, right, with yourself. If you have a big ball of rice in your hand with sauce and a bit of meat, so it's mainly rice, but because you have to make it sticky to be able to eat, and then put that in your mouth. The difference with having just 3 fingers, you cannot have the same amount of food in your mouth at the same time. So you will naturally eat slower. It'll take you longer to finish your plate, obviously, that's logical. And it'll give more time for your brain to receive the message that it's had enough food. So you're not likely to maybe have a second helping or overeat. Another principle I found that is very helpful as well to let your body go through that natural process is your brain sees what's in the plate. Okay, so when you help yourself, if you start by, you have an empty plate, first of all, the size of the plate would matter. Have a smaller plate to start off with. Then don't start by putting the rice on or the potatoes or the pasta. Start by putting the meaty stuff, or if you don't have meat,
and your salad.
Salad. So the more color there is in the plate, the more the brain will get the message that as said it's got what it needs. So if you start with all the colorful food, don't start with the starchy food. You need a bit of starch, okay, but you don't have to, but it's okay to have some of it.
Of course.
But don't make it the main the main part of your plate. And then put on top or on the side a bit of rice, a bit of potato. You will see the difference is quite striking, because you realize, oh, actually I am quite full and satisfied with it. I don't need to have a mountain of rice with it's a bit like a volcano. You've got like a mountain of rice. And I'm subhanallah, sisters and brothers listening to me, this is a note to myself, okay? I'm really not dissing anyone, having a go at anyone. This is just even for myself. I love rice. Rice is like
I
my
love
chocolate.
pasta.
Rice is, really, for me, although pasta is like my staple food from childhood because my dad's Italian. But rice is, I couldn't have pasta when I was little, so I think I moved on to rice being my main food. And I just love it. I could eat it standing by the stove, fresh basmati, fluffy. I'm sure everybody knows what
You're
I'm
making us
talking about.
hungry now.
I love it, with a bit of salt on it.
And isn't it interesting? It when you speak
like
about
chocolate.
certain foods, it makes you hungry.
Yeah.
You're starting to salivate because it does something to your brain.
Yeah.
You want it.
Yeah. So this is the principle, as I force myself to have all of the other foods first and then add the rice, and I realize actually that's quite enough for me, and I'm not so stimulated by the rice. But that's just one little thing again that I just remembered when you said about the thinking and it makes you salivate. Did you know that even athletes do that when they need extra quick calories, but they can't eat them? They just smell something like sweet or carby, or like a bread or something, and that gives them extra energy. It's as if the body was like, oh, I'm going to get some extra glucose or carbs, and I've got more energy, let's push a little bit. They don't need to eat it.
That's very interesting how psychology plays such an important part.
But it's like, it's
that
also
we don't
through
really
the nose.
realize it.
It's more than psychology, I think. It's the chemicals going into the nose, the receptors, that gives a message to the brain, and that has an effect on the body. And you can we call it psychology as well, like when you say the stimulation from the brain, when you think of something, all of a sudden it has an impact on yourself.
Well, first you think of the pizza, and then you go and make it, or you buy it because you see a picture of it, and then it gives you the idea, oh, I'd love to have some of that.
So yeah, we have to be aware of all these things, how the body is a complex machine.
And we could use science, I suppose. We could use it for our betterment. So since we know that our body carbs, they dull the messages of how much to eat, then we do need to measure. I mean, we don't have to measure everything, but we do need to measure carbs, how much pasta, how much rice we eat. You take a cup and you put it straight on your plate, and then you can fill the plate with your meat and your steamed vegetables or your salad, depending on the weather, how, because in the winter you don't really want to have cold salads, but something you can eat, right, with healthy fats and stuff. We have to measure how much we eat because they are the easiest to get out of control, that we eat the most, that they're the most delicious. Okay, we have to measure it before we put it on our plate.
So today I would like to tell everyone listening that you can actually text the number of the radio and we'll get it on WhatsApp. So if you text 07751 939 396, and you can text us and we'll see your message popping up on our screen for WhatsApp. And if you have anything you'd like to share with us, your experience with food, it would be lovely to hear from you. What I'd like us to go back on this idea.
One minute, Safiya. Can you repeat it again for people who didn't
go
go
ahead. Yeah.
07751 939 396. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, perfect. So let's go back on that calorie in, calorie out. So again, we said it's a mixture of a myth and a fact, isn't it? Because we need energy to fuel our body. But in what way is it a myth that it's not so simple to be like, oh, I'm going to reduce my calories or I'm going to increase my exercise?
Okay, it's more complicated, but let's just try to make it as easy as possible. First of all, everybody has something called a BMR, which is it's your basal metabolic rate, which means how much calories your body burns in a state of just sleeping, lying down, right? You'd be surprised, everybody has a different rate, and your rate depends on how much muscle you have, how much weight you are.
Yeah.
It depends on a lot of things, how much energy you expend, right? Now, the more muscle you have, the higher the metabolic rate, and then your body can, burns faster. Obviously, when you see people who have extra weight, their metabolic rate is low. That means even if they're not overeating, because everybody who's overweight does not mean they're overeating. It means their metabolism is low and it burns a certain amount and the rest stores as fat. So that's why, when you see overweight people, it does not mean that they're overeating. It could mean that they've dieted a lot in the past, and then unbeknownst to them, the metabolic rate reduced. That's something we need to learn and to talk about it a lot, because a lot of women, they go on these diets, and diets are what causes your metabolism to reduce. So you go on a diet to lose weight, and when you're young and you still have your muscles and you're normal, you lose weight and you think, oh, this works for me. But as you get older and you exercise, you go on this diet, you lose the weight you want, and then you go back to normal, your body has reduced its metabolic rate, and then after that, when you're eating normally, it's storing the extra above and beyond the metabolic rate as fat. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah,
Do you
and I think it's
I need
quite
to clarify it better?
No, I think it's possible. It's clear. What I find interesting is that you use the words like you go on a diet and then you go back to normal, and it really indicates that a lot of the approach that we have is to say, oh, I'm going to go into that sort of weird, unusual, unnatural way of eating for a while, and then I'll go back to normal. And what both of us are trying to encourage people is to find something that is sustainable for life. And we found that we'll have a special show just on that, which is about fasting and the different types of fasting, for instance, and also how our ancestors used to eat. The Prophet ﷺ used to eat. How, why is it that we've changed so much? It's all because of the temptation around us, the idea that we have to snack all the time because otherwise we don't have enough energy, and all of those things. But what I find about a fact that I discovered about the basal metabolic rate is that for an average person, it's about 70% of your energy expenditure is just your body function. It's like you have your computer, it's on sleep mode, but it still have some functions going in the background. You can't really see it, but it still uses a bit of battery. Well, in the body, it actually uses a lot of your energy. 70% is just the body. You're lying down, you're doing nothing. It's keeping your heart rate, your heart going, your digestion going, all of the functions, like your circulation. Then about 28% is your what's called a passive activity. And passive activity is walking about, going up and down the stairs, driving to work, going in public transport, the sort of things where you don't really push your heart, or you don't really think about it. You're just using your muscles to move your body. And only 2% of your energy expenditure is active, which is when you actually dedicate some time of your life to do some exercise. And I found that quite shocking. But after the break, we'll explain to you a little bit more about all this, because it's quite an important concept to understand.
Well, that was a really nice break and a nice little song. And we're back.
Yeah.
Before we continue, I just wanted to clarify. We will talk about it in more detail in another show when we're talking about fasting. But just to remind everyone here, when we're talking about low-calorie diets, we are not talking about fasting. That is a different metabolic process, like biological process. That's not the same as eating a low-calorie diet. So we'll go into it later. When I mean later, at a later date. And Safiya, you were going to talk about more in detail about the metabolic rate.
Yeah, so I was basically saying that the 70% of your expenditure, when you do absolutely nothing, you're sleeping or you're lying down on a sofa doing nothing, say, 70% is basically used like this. Then you have about 28%, which is used when you go about your daily life, going up and down the stairs, carrying things, driving, or going in public transport. And then a final only 2% is actually used when you do dedicated exercise. So to me, what it means is that, first of all, 2 lessons. One of them is, don't just stop doing your exercise just because you're not going to spend as much energy. Those 2% are really important. Not just like obviously you're going to just use 2%, say, of your expenditure, but it's very, very important for lots of other reasons: your muscles, your mobility, your joints, your happiness, all sorts of things. Your heart. So, but it also means that if you want to lose a bit of weight, if you want to be a little bit more leaner, say, and feel better in your clothes, etc., you don't need to spend 3 hours on the treadmill every day. All right, I'm using a very extreme example. We love extreme examples here, but it's really to put that in your mind. You really don't need to say. I see so many times on wellness forums and on different platforms, someone saying, I've got 10 kilos to lose. I've got, like, say, I don't know, 20 pounds to lose. And what can I do? I'm going to start running, and I'm going to run every day or something. I'm like, just take it easy, okay? First of all, if you have extra weight to lose, don't start running, because your joints are not ready for it. Your muscles are not ready for it. You're going to injure yourself. You're going to demotivate yourself. It's going to be hard. You're really not there. Just start to do something that more natural for the body. So we talked a lot about walking on one of our last episodes, but just something that is more natural, but say walk a little bit faster. So just to kind of increase the amount of energy you'll be using when you do that more natural activity. So it's just that, and then build up from there. And after that, you can do.
I have a question though. I mean, as far as I know, and I understand that your body increases the metabolic rate as you increase the muscles. If you're just doing only aerobics, How does that help?
Yeah, I guess this is why it's recommended to do a combination of things. So a little bit of aerobics exercise is good to get your heart stronger, pumping more oxygen through your body when you do your exercise, whatever movement you do. But at the same time, strength training is really important. Strength would be like weightlifting or more sort of that get your heart rate, say, go less high than if you were running or doing jumping or doing step work or cycling, but you basically slowly build your muscles to be bigger, to be stronger, and that is very beneficial. It's actually considered to be more beneficial for women, especially older women, to do strength training, because it also helps with the strength of the bones. So this
I believe now, after all the research I've done, and on a level of seeing how it works on other people, that exercise is very good for you, but don't use it to lose weight. Again, though, you need to increase your muscle mass to increase your metabolic rate. Yeah. Now, someone mentioned something about explaining the CICO.
CICO is calorie in, calorie out.
Calorie out. Everybody has a different metabolic rate, and you can actually find the formula and calculate what is your metabolic rate, and then based on that, decide how much to eat. The thing is, everyone is different, and that formula itself does not take into consideration a lot of things. One important thing is muscle mass. So if you're the same weight, two people are the same weight, one person has really high muscle rate and the other one has a lot of fat, it's not telling you anything. So what I would do is you go about controlling your appetite as naturally as possible, not by saying, no, I'm not going to eat,
but I'm ravenous, yeah.
But controlling yourself in terms of what you put in your mouth and eating foods that will naturally control your appetite, which is more protein and healthy fats. And don't have in your head a plate of fat and protein and a little bit of carbs. No, it doesn't work like that. You cannot overeat meat and fat. So you're naturally going to have your appetite will be controlled naturally. Right? And a lot of fiber too. You have to add your vegetables, your steamed vegetables, your salads. Put a lot of that on your plate and have your protein, and it will naturally control your appetite, and then it will help you control your appetite, like to lead to weight loss. You don't necessarily need to know those numbers in order to afford change. What you need to do is how does it work for you, how much you can eat. Everybody's different. A 300-pound person with muscle is different with somebody who's 50% fat, right?
Yeah.
But we need to control your appetite, and the best way to do it is through the type of foods you eat. If you want to lose weight by eating donuts, in theory, it's doable. But but you're going to end up being hungry all the time and miserable and unhappy and low blood sugar and all kinds. But if you eat a healthy diet of protein, like eggs and chicken and your delicious cauliflower and all kinds of delicious vegetables, preferably in season, you will lose weight. Now sometimes your body's not showing on the scale. Even the scale is kind of like a trick, because you're losing weight but it's not showing, because while you're losing weight you're also increasing in muscles. There is ways obviously to know what's happening, but those, like the DEX scanner, but we don't have access to that. So you don't need to make it complicated. You just need to change what you eat, what's on your plate.
To be more in tune with your body. I remember years ago, I decided to try, that was years ago, I think probably around the time we started talking more about nutrition, you and I, and I switched to having a little bit more sort of cheese on my plate, eggs, and then I would have like some a stem broccoli on the side, and so that would be my green, or salad, like a big mixed salad, things like that, right? Okay, and so there was quite a bit of fat. There was maybe I would have some oat cakes or whole grain seeded slice of whole grain seeded bread, but just one rather than three. Say, okay, just kind of change a little bit the ratios of things rather than a third of each, as is normally recommended. And I was amazed. I think originally what I did, that was about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, so I don't remember because I'm so much into my habitual way of eating. But I must have for a few days just had no refined carbs, so no bread and start, no potatoes and no rice, I think, for a few days, just to see the difference. And I was amazed that I had stopped craving food. I was just eating when I was hungry. So that is when the previous food was digested. I was not snacking. That is, again, another big issue in our society nowadays. And I remember being amazed. So now this is really my go-to approach when I feel like I'm going a little bit like, again, I've reduced my sensitivity to sweet stuff, and I'm eating biscuits again a bit too much, or chocolate or things like that. And then, I end up forgetting. I was like, okay, let's just do reduce my portions of what makes me craving things and increase the portions of things that make me more full. And so I'd encourage anyone listening to us to just try this little experiment, and the next time just have there's another thing as well. It's like I always said, the brain tricks you, your eyes trick you and think you don't have enough food on your plate. If you use a measuring cup, you'd be shocked, because have a look at how much even just a cup of rice is. It's not a lot.
But
it's not a lot
surprised
compared to if you don't use a measuring cup. You just kind of put it on the top of you're very quickly up to 2 cups in a plate, very easily. So even if you reduce that, it's like, I'm going to use a measuring cup just it's not because you want to be so drastic about things, but it's just kind of, I need to be able to see exactly what I put on my plate. What is a cup of rice compared to a cup of beans or a cup of green vegetables or something? And you'll be surprised.
I just want to clarify that even though I was just saying we don't really need to know our basic metabolic rate, because for lay people it doesn't really do anything. We need to watch what we put on our plate, right? At the same time, we do have to I'm not backtracking. I'm saying you do need to measure your refined carbs, your pasta, your rice, your bread. You do need to do that, because they're the foods that we're most likely to overeat. Yeah. And they're the ones who dull the sensors that say you've had enough. So that's the only thing you really need to weigh. The other foods, the fat and the protein, like the eggs, the meat, you just cannot overeat it. Unless you're eating it in combination with carbs. So you have to see what works for you. But I do challenge people to one day eat eggs, boil some eggs, and see how many you can eat, and then eat some nice rice, how much you can eat, and do that. Examine yourself, test yourself to see how it works for you, and then you'll see that your body will tell you enough.
Yeah, there's another thing that I'd like to mention about this calorie in, calorie out approach. Again, how foods are not equal. So I did a little experiment the other day on my exercise bike, and I did 10 minutes of cycling, pedaling, and I was like on maybe level 2 or something. So it wasn't really too hard. My heart rate went up, but I wasn't pushing myself or anything. It was just kind of a gentle cycle. And apparently, according to the machine, I spent 36 calories in 10 minutes, which is really not a lot. And I felt like I was still, exerting myself a little bit. It wasn't just like sitting on the couch. So, if I have a couple of these muffins I mentioned earlier, that's about 300 calories. So how many? I have to for 100 minutes. Which is, an hour and 40 minutes on the bike to be, if we were to take that thing. But that would maybe give me extra energy to do it, potentially, for that hour and 40 minutes. However, I would not be building as much muscle that if I had the equivalent in maybe cheese, eggs, and broccoli. You know, in terms of the nutrition that it would have given me. Potentially what happens is that when you've exerted yourself and you've pushed yourself, say you're someone who's much more active, much more athlete oriented, and you really do a lot of exercise every day, and you're preparing for a marathon, a half marathon, or 5K, 10K, whatever. There's a moment potentially where having a little extra, quick energy is beneficial. But by and large, it's not really the main thing you need for your for an average person. Even myself, doing a lot of taekwondo, I would really only increase my energy, and I would have a banana, because we have to remember we only need a little bit for that extra energy. You don't need to have 3-4 slices of toast and 4 Mars bars.
But I just want to remind you that when you're an athlete, your body fat percentage is lower than somebody who is overweight. So your body is accessing the carbs faster, whatever's stored, and that's why you need to increase it, like through food, because otherwise you're gonna hit a wall, like they say in that I've heard in terms of what when they're running, they hit a wall because they run out of energy. Well, if that's only for people who are burning carbs, if you are a fat burner, right, and you have fat to burn, then you won't reach that. But if you're an athlete, your body fat is very low, so you need to do that other way around, the carbs. I mean, I'm not a coach for athletes, but I'm thinking in those terms, that why you need to have that burst of extra carbs. But if you're overweight, you have a lot of fat, and you need to get your body to a place to access it, to burn it. And it's not going to be by reducing calories, right? It's figuring out what reduces your appetite biologically, and not counting, because not everybody can do that counting. And it's not even like the counting, the calories are just like a percentage, like a calculation. It's not necessarily the real number, because it depends on how you cook a food. It depends on lots of things, how much fiber there's in it. There's all kinds of things that we don't take into consideration.
Yeah, very true. And there's also a thing as well, is you don't need to have, like, all of a sudden reach for the butter and start loading it and eating by the spoon to be able to have a lot of fat. If you already have a lot of fat in your body, just let your body use that fat. You don't need to add extra fat. Let it use that fat.
The only time I would say even I normally recommend keto is, of course, if you're spend all your life eating carbs and your body's used to burning carbs, sugar, glucose, and you want to train it because it has to build the enzymes and other stuff to start burning fat, is to do that for a while. Your body gets into ketosis, starts burning fat, and then reduce the fat, so your body's burning the fat that's in your cells. It's like a training period. It's like a protocol to try and help you lose weight. It's not if you're a normal weight and you're an athlete.
Can you just quickly explain what, because you mentioned 2 words, keto diet or keto way of eating and ketosis. Just some people might not be very familiar with that. Okay,
so keto is a diet that tells you to reduce your carbs, right, down to like 20 grams. So there's different forms, but the main one that I can say is 20 grams per day of carbs. So there's some calculations involved in that too. There's even apps to help you. And then the rest is mostly fat and some protein, right? And that puts your body, it makes your body burn out all the glucose that's in your body, like in your liver and your muscles. And then it switches, like, you know how we have cars with electricity and diesel. It switches to the other fuel, which is the fat in your cells. That, you know, it's not, your body doesn't actually access it unless you're fasting. So then it accesses the fat fast. So that's called ketosis. When your body is burning fat for energy, it's your body's in ketosis.
Which is, you know, when we do long fasts in Ramadan and we start having that sort of fasting breath, that's when we say we are actually, people will not realize that that's when you are in ketosis. It's when you get that fasting breath. So that means the body is really starting to use all of these things that are stored deep in the body. So that explains a bit why as well. But we'll do that into many more details when we get closer to Ramadan. We'll have a special show on fasting. So there are, just to kind of round things up a little bit on this, the whole food that would fill you, what I know from the sort of athlete point of view is that athletes, for instance, will eat al dente carbs if they eat carbs. For instance, they would eat rice that's like just a tiny little bit of firm under or the pastas as well, because what happens, instead of being a fast sugar, it's a slow sugar, like oats are. They are naturally slow sugar, so they're released in the body throughout the day more regularly, more slowly.
Have you heard of the idea of resistant starch? That's probably what it is, what you're saying. Resistant starch is the idea that people who you can cause the carb, like rice, to not absorb fully in your body by making it, cooling it down, and then eating it.
All right.
And apparently it feeds into the idea that you're still eating more carbs, but your body's not absorbing it. Which means your body doesn't recognize it. It's just going through your system, but you're still feeling full, right? And therefore your body's still accessing the fat.
Yeah.
I have to, I've seen some videos on this, and I really do need to experiment it, because afterwards you take it and then you have to test your blood sugar to see how it actually affected. But there's people who've done videos on this if you want to see it on YouTube.
Very good. So there's also one thing that we are quite keen to do is to also encourage people to look at your traditional diet, so where you're from. So a lot of the issues that we find in different ethnic is that people have moved away from the natural diets
of their communities.
Of their community.
Yeah.
Because your body's still designed a little bit, quite a bit way actually, the way it would be needed in the country you're from, your family is from. Even if you're here second or third generation, your skin might be darker or might be lighter. You might have, different body shapes if you come from East Africa or West Africa. There's loads of things you need to take into account. If you're Caribbean, there's certain foods that agree with you much more than if you are from East Africa. If you are from Asia, Central Europe, you name it. And Northern Europe,
exciting.
Very different. And we've compared, so that's kind of a nice way. What sort of food now in winter? Me coming from the northeast of France, near Germany, I would go for root. That's it. I crave it. I really feel like warming, enjoyable food would be a nice stew pot with root vegetables. Potatoes and
I'll go with the potatoes,
and carrots and like soups, but a lot of root vegetables, that pumpkins. But you were saying that you naturally, if you think about the sort of heartwarming food that you really want to eat, is very different, isn't it? You being Greek. It's
we don't have apart from carrots and potatoes. I don't remember parsnips. I don't even know the Greek word for parsnips. They have each region has their own root vegetables, right? Like in West Africa, in East Africa, in Asia, Japan, Europe, their own root. So I don't remember ever even having sweet potato when I was a child. Like they didn't grow them. I don't know if now they sell them in Greece, or even corn. We were having more potatoes, more carrots, beans, and such like that. So
some countries like here, we would have more seasonal type of ways of eating, and other places where the seasons are not so marked. Then
I think it's very hard to find season, like to know what's seasonal if you don't know your country's basic food. You don't know what is seasonal. You'd have to do some research. If you're eating your traditional food, it's good.
So what sort of things would you eat, just very briefly to finish off, as a Greek person? What would you eat?
Well, I'd make stuff with rice, like stuffed vegetables, like stuffed peppers, potatoes in the oven with chicken.
Yeah. Again, I think for me, I would really go for seasonal vegetables. So it would be, nowadays would be, as I said, roots, vegetables. But in summer, it would be salads, greens, a lot of these things. So this is it really for this show. We just can go on and on and on for hours. But we just continue. As you know, this show is for you, and we will explore all of these issues. There's discoveries we make, and
experiments we do.
Yeah, and just make sure you check with someone first if you want to change something drastically, and educate yourself before you decide to change anything. But inshallah,
make sure you find out more about what to do for your health. Don't leave it to others. Take control of your health. Do your research.
That's a wonderful way of ending. That's our tip of the week. And we'll see you next week, inshallah. Have a wonderful week and good health to you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum. We hope that you enjoyed this week's discussion. Remember, none of what we said is intended to diagnose, treat, or cure.
Bringing communities together. Heritage Radio.